Now, one of the final most important pieces of being a good candidate for any company is having great questions to ask at the end of your interview. Having a great question indicates interest in the role and shows that you prepared. And it's no different with FedEx. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you 5 great questions you can ask at the very end of your FedEx job interview to stand out as a great candidate. Now, this is video 4 of a 4-part series about how to get a job with FedEx. But make sure you watch till the very end, because at the very end, I'm going to be teeing up a video to talk about how you can negotiate the best starting salary. All right, with that being said, let's get into the questions. Now, real quick, the reason why this is important is because at the end of the day, every hiring manager wants to hire somebody who is enthusiastic about their role, feels like they have prepared for their role, and cares about it. And showing that you have taken the time to do your research, prepare, and come with great questions, well, that is a great indicator that you're a candidate who is certainly interested in their role. There's a huge difference between bad questions and great questions. Let's talk about 5 great questions. Now, the first one is, what does this person need to accomplish in the first 90 days in order for you to consider this hire to be a success? Now, if you feel 90 days isn't appropriate and 6 months or a year would be better, feel free to swap this out. But basically what you're doing here is you're trying to identify what does success look like in this role. And it's a great question for a handful of reasons. One, you want to know if it's reasonable, right? They're going to lay out goals, and it's important that you feel you can accomplish them. Another thing that I always look for is, does the hiring manager know what it looks like? When a hiring manager can't answer this question confidently, it makes me wonder if they actually know what success looks like, and is reporting to them going to be frustrating because they don't know what success or failure looks like in the role. It can be really challenging to report to a person who can't articulate what success looks like. Lastly, it's just a question that makes you look strategic. And oftentimes when the person's answering this, they go, well, if you get this job, you're going to have to do this, this, this. It allows them to start talking to you as if you were in the role. It's a great question for a handful of reasons. The next question I like to ask is, what initially attracted you to FedEx when you were a candidate? This is a good question because it allows them to talk a little bit about themselves. Psychologically, people have a better recollection of a conversation the more they spoke. And in an interview, the person asking the question does less talking. But when you ask them great questions and you get them talking about themselves, well, it's a really good opportunity for them to share this. It's also, I'm always looking for like, how enthusiastic are they, right? Are they like, well, what I was really excited about was blank? Or are they, I don't know, I mean, it was a good company and the role was a good fit for me. If that happens, 1, it makes me wonder, do they even like this job? 2, it makes me wonder, are they interested in me as a candidate? Because if they were, they'd probably be trying to sell me on the opportunity. So those are things I look for. Lastly, when they share the information and the stuff they like, it's good ammunition for a great thank you email. Because a thank you email that isn't personalized doesn't really move the needle. But a thank you email that recalls parts of the conversation from your interview and highlights it, well, that's a bit more meaningful. Whatever they say here, you could write a thank you email that goes, hey, I wanted to take a minute to thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I appreciate you answering all my questions, and I enjoyed our conversation talking through the role. What really stood out to me was when you talked about blank, and then you share whatever it was they said. After talking with you, I'm even more motivated to pursue this role. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any time. Thanks, Ben. That's a great thank you email. And you don't get that information unless you ask a question like this. The next question I like to ask is, what is the most challenging aspect of this role? It's a really good question. It's almost like the what's your greatest weakness, except for hiring managers. So it's good to turn the tables here. I like this question because they don't get it a lot. This isn't a question hiring managers are frequently asked, so you're more likely to get an authentic answer as opposed to a canned answer. Like, you're going to get a real answer here. I also like to know, what is the hardest part of this job? You should never accept a job without knowing what is going to be challenging if you take that job. You know, beyond that, I just like hearing about it, listening, and then you get to rebuttal them and let them know, you know, thanks for sharing that with me. You know, that was very similar. In my previous job, I had to do blank. And you can actually share that you have succeeded in previous roles doing the thing that is most challenging for them if you happen to have that experience. So another great question. The next question I like to ask are, what are some of the skills and behaviors of the most effective members of your team here at FedEx? I like asking this question because I want to know, what are the characteristics of the people who really succeed? Your best employees. What is it about them that makes them great? This is good to listen to, especially if you have more interviews, because then in the subsequent interviews, you can actually highlight how you also have those skills. So it's a great question if it's early in the process. But even if it's at your last interview, when they share these things, you go, oh yeah, that totally makes sense to me. It's one of the things that allowed me to succeed is my ability to blank. And then you also parrot basically what they said. If they said it was somebody who, takes initiative, the best people at this company take initiative. You go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I've been told by past managers is they really appreciated my ability to take initiative. I think it's really important to understand your job well enough to be able to take action, blah, 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 right? What you're basically doing is you're getting them to give away the secret sauce and then letting them know that you also are able to do that thing. It's a great question to ask. I'm a huge fan of asking it. Another great question to ask is, do you have any questions or concerns about my ability to do the job? I call this the closing question. And one of two things is going to happen. One, they're going to go, no, I don't have any questions. I think you do have the skills for this role. At which point you'll say, that's really great to hear. I am very interested in this role and I'm excited about next steps. You're just basically letting them know, oh, you think I'm a good fit? Good. I'm excited about your role. Every hiring manager wants someone who is excited about the role, but by doing that, you're not really giving up any leverage. You're just letting them know intent to follow through with the role. Now, the other thing that might happen is they might go, yeah, Ben, I do have some questions. I noticed you didn't have as much experience doing blank. And at this point, it's really important that you handle this the right way because now you have an opportunity to counter, but you can't counter in a defensive way. You have to go, oh, you know what? Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate your candid answer there. I think I might not have done as good a job as I should have indicating in my resume and some of my answers, my experience in ABC job where I worked as a blank. I actually did quite a bit of blank, but I don't think I talked about that as much. And you can basically counter their concern. I have heard people say, well, you don't want them to thinking about negative things at the end of the interview. The reality is, if they're not interested in you as a candidate, they're not going to be interested. You hoping they don't remember one of your weaknesses doesn't work. But addressing it directly in a non-defensive, productive way, that can work. And if you don't ask this question, you'll never get an opportunity to do that. Now, if you do all these things right, you're probably going to get an offer. But in order to maximize your offer and get the most money possible, there are a few things you need to do. This video right here, I detail all of them. This is the ultimate guide to salary negotiation. So I'm done here, but I'll see you over there.